You don't have to like him, but you have to treat him and any witness before this committee with respect.
Are you objecting to the question? If so, please state your objection.
Mr. Chairman, I object.
The gentleman does not have standing to object. There is no point of order. No point of order here. The
point of order should be heard.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
Mr. Strzok.
The gentleman's point of order is not well taken.
It's right on point.
No, it's not. Ruled.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Let me continue your objection.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Strzok, please be advised.
Point of order.
Do you understand that?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
The question is directed to the witness.
And I have a point of order before he answers the question.
The point of order is not well taken until...
You don't know what the point of order is. You can't say it's not well taken.
The point of order, the witness will answer the question.
Mr. Chairman, I raise my point of order, and I insist on it.
What is the point of order?
The United States, he is right, and he should not answer the question.
The gentleman has not stated a valid point of
I will
order.
appeal the ruling of the chair in that case.
Nonetheless,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, you know, or we all know, that if we were to ask a question of a witness about a military secret, if we were to ask him, how does the H-bomb work, he could not answer that question. This is the same thing.
That is a classification issue, not an issue of whether or not this is a valid question for which...
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
It's not a point of order.
He has ruled that it's not a point of order.
That is not a ruling. Mr. Strzok?
Mr. Chairman, I insist on my point of order, and I insist on appealing the ruling of the chair.
Mr. Strzok, knowing the advice that
Point of order,
Mr.
Chairman. Point of order. I believe there's a point of order that's been raised, and you've ruled we have a right now to answer Mr. Nadler's.
It is not a valid point of order. The chair has
already repress it, Mr. Chairman, because you don't.
On that ruling.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Strzok.
Mr. Chairman, I appeal the ruling of the chair that you have just made on that on whether the
you have not stated a valid point of order.
And that is your ruling, and I appeal it.
That is not an appealable.
Point of order. Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. Appealing the ruling of the chair is exactly.
It is not a point of order.
That's your
ruling.
ruling.
That ruling of the chair.
Mr. Chairman, is it not attorney-client privilege, and he has been advised not to answer the question?
The gentleman will suspend. The gentleman has not raised the attorney-client privilege. He has said that he's been instructed by the FBI not to answer the question. Now,
by lawyers.
He knows you refuse to answer the committee's question.
Point of parliamentary inquiry,
the ruling of the chair that
point of parliamentary
order
inquiry
was not in order.
Point of parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from do you refuse to answer the committee's question?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
You're not recognized for that purpose.
Mr. Chairman, I think you have no choice but to recognize such a motion.
I do not have to.
It's Mr. Gowdy's time.
Are you just going to make up rules as we go along?
The motion is not in order during the time controlled by the gentleman from South Carolina.
I appeal that ruling of the chair.
Mr. Strzok, will you answer?
I appeal your ruling of the chair that my motion to adjourn is not in order.
The gentleman is not in order.
That may be, but I appeal your ruling.
You may consult with your own counsel.
But I may not consult with the FBI's counsel?
Only with your own counsel.
Mr. Chairman, there's no basis for that. He can consult with the FBI counsel. He's an FBI employee.
The gentleman is not recognized.
And the chairman is not being proper.
The chairman is being proper.
The witness can't be directed not to confer with his attorney.
The FBI is not his attorney. His attorney is seated behind him. If he wishes
He's an employee of the FBI,
Mr. He's already done. He may do so.
And his attorney may consult with the FBI attorney?
Mr. Chairman, my counsel has reiterated that counsel for the FBI has directed that I may not answer that question.
Mr. Strzok, in a moment we will continue with the hearing, but based on your refusal to answer the question, at the conclusion of the day we will be recessing the hearing and you will be subject to recall to allow the committee to consider proceeding with a contempt citation.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. Will the committee also consider contempt for Mr. Bannon, who refused to answer Mr. Gowdy's questions when he was actually under subpoena?
That is
gonna happen
not a
too?
proper point of order in this hearing.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Gowdy, do you remember
Parliamentary inquiry.
The
you remember
time
that?
is controlled by the gentleman from
Parliamentary inquiry.
A parliamentary inquiry is
Mr.
not
Bannon
in
wouldn't
order
answer your
when the
questions
gentleman
under subpoena,
from
Mr.
South
Gowdy.
Carolina controls the time.
Fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
Yeah, Mr.
My
Gowdy, you asked what I
question to
meant.
you is
Chairman,
the
is the witness
wheel.
going to be permitted to answer the
You
question
said
posed?
testimony
His time
a
has
couple of
expired,
weeks
Mr.
ago.
Chairman.
Your
By
testimony
2.5
a couple of
minutes.
weeks. It's going to be tough for me to get through it if I keep getting interrupted.
Asked and answered over and over again.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I have a Rule 11 motion, Mr. Chairman. Clause 2. I move to subpoena Steve Bannon. Mr. Bannon was a witness in the House Intelligence Committee investigation. He was under subpoena. He refused to answer questions.
Those opposed, no.
No.
In the chair, the ayes have
Mr.
it.
Chairman, I asked for a recorded
Chairman,
vote.
point of
I asked for a
parliamentary inquiry,
recorded
Mr. Chairman.
vote.
Mr. Chairman, point of parliamentary inquiry.
Gentleman will state his point of parliamentary inquiry.
On the
Mr. Chairman, point of order. On what?
And I ask the chairman now to order the release of that transcript. Will the chairman do so?
Not today.
Will the chairman ever do so?
You can direct your questions to the witness. That's your time to do that, not to discuss this.
I will observe that the chairman will not answer the question and that this is part of the continuing evasion because
Will
we
the gentleman
know...
yield?
No, not at the moment. I will in
Very
a
good.
moment when I finish the sentence.
There seems to me, no good reason, other than a personal preference of some apparently, that this transcript not be released.
There was an agreement in the interview that it was private, confidential, and that it would not be released.
Mr. Strzok, would you object to the release of the transcript of that hearing?
No, I would not object.
Thank you. I will observe then.
And do you see why that might call into question everything you've touched on all of those investigations? Chairman, I'm done with this witness and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, if I can respond.
Briefly.
Sir, well, there are several questions, and I'll answer them all briefly.
There were several statements. I only heard one question.
The United States should honor its commitment to mutual defense under NATO.
I appreciate that,
Sir,
Mr.
when you
Chairman.
think about
Thank you very much. That's not briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may the witness be permitted
of these
to finish his
actual,
answer as you
No.
promised you would give him that opportunity.
Regular order, he should be permitted to answer his question.
Everyone will suspend. I told the gentleman he could answer briefly. He has answered briefly. And
He has not finished answering.
We will now turn briefly.
Sir, it is as frustrating to me as it is to you. I can tell you, sir, that I would love...
Well, you know what,
if there is
Agent
an appropriate-
Mr. Chairman, may the witness be permitted to answer.
If it's so, if
Gentlemen will suspend.
if it's so frustrating, answer the question.
If you'll allow him to, I'm sure he will.
He has never answered the question who
Stop
Gordon Simpson
interrupting
are.
him.
We're about
The
to...
gentleman instruct the gentleman from Ohio to stop badgering and
We're
allow him to answer the question.
We're about to move on. Nation of this, and he can answer those questions, but
He cannot answer
he's
questions
been
regarding an
advised by
ongoing
the FBI
investigation.
that he can, and so Mr.
He's been
Gowdy's
advised by the FBI that he cannot.
It's as if they never read this report. Like you never bothered to pick it up.
Between July 31st, 2016 and August 6, 2016, how many witness interviews did you conduct as part of the Russia-Trump campaign alleged collusion investigation?
I don't recall, and I'd have to check the case file.
We waited all that time for that answer?
Yes, sir.
He didn't.
Right.
He wouldn't answer.
The gentleman will continue.
Between
Could you
May
explain
17th.
why he can continue in our time?
He can he's not on your time.
Not
It's
my
on-
personally
it's
Democratic
on,
time.
we are following the rules of the committee.
Could you cite the rule?
No.
No.
Gentleman will proceed.
Just, Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman
point of
will-
parliamentary
Excuse me,
inquiry.
this seems to be
Look, we're going to, the Democrats...
Mr. Chairman, point of
obstruction
parliamentary
this hearing,
inquiry. Point of parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman
Democratic
from South
members of this
Carolina
committee have a
is
right to
recognized.
know what the rules are in governing this hearing.
Agent-
Because
Gentlemen,
can you share with us
the
these
gentleman
secret rules
is not
that
in
you're
order.
making up as you go
Gentlemen.
along?
Impeachment
Second,
for what,
Mr.
Agent Strzok? Impeachment for
Impeachment.
what?
Second
After
of all.
all
Order,
of
Mr.
that?
Chairman, what are the
Not
rules
letting the
here?
witness
Mr.
answer
Chairman,
the
what are the
question.
rules?
The gentleman will
He's
allow
opened
the
up a whole
witness
new
to
round of
answer the
questions.
question, and then we'll move.
No, this is my
Mr.
time,
Chairman, I'm
and
sorry,
it needs to
point
be
of order.
paused.
This point of order. There is
Oh,
not
the
a
gentleman
single
come
person
here
on this
and
committee
lied.
who has ever characterized a witness
Gentleman
as
from
lying
Rhode
or
Island,
sitting here
the gentleman-
appearing
It's
before
my
this committee.
time.
That's a disgrace.
Gentleman from
You
Rhode
can
Island will
praise
suspend.
him
No, the disgrace
Mr.
is what this man has done.
The gentleman
to our
from
justice
Texas will
system.
suspend for a moment.
I've been here a member of Congress for 24 years. It's the first time we've had this kind of event, a circus, really.
How many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
The credibility of a witness
Shame
is
on
always
you,
an
Mr.
issue.
Mr.
and you
Chairman, please, there's
have
no
Mr. Chairman, this is intolerable harassment of the witness.
What's wrong with that? You need your medication.
That rates for Pinocchios.
Divided by 10. 100 million divided by 10, I'm pretty sure it's 10 million. 0 divided by 10 is still 0.
You want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. OMG, he's an idiot.
May 4th, 2016.
Now the pressure really starts to finish MYE.
July 19th, 2016.
Hi, how was Trump other than a douche? Melania?
Okay, read it again that way.
Sir, did you not, was
No,
it
I
not
just wanted to
intelligible?
hear it
You
one
just
more
want to
time.
hear it for me to repeat it?
Please.
Okay, sir. Sure, happy to indulge you. I can't...
Tag, you're it.
You looking at something with an open mind is not the one I picked.
But that's the obvious one to conclude from that email.
Over. Does it, Mr.
Sorry,
Chairman,
if we
you
may, that one
go on and on and on as long as
the
you
quicker I can go.
Or point of order.
I would take
Time
your
is
one
up.
big word of, it's not what I said, sir. That's not what I said, and that's not what this report says.
And if you can't control yourself, how do you expect this committee to control itself? You've been out of control since you've been on this committee. Why don't you leave it alone? This is not Benghazi.
Inaccurate.
Oh,
There's
you
nothing
did.
to
Let
correct.
the witness needs to be able to answer the
And you're out of
question.
order.
The witness needs to be answering
Mr.
the
Chairman,
question.
Mr. Chairman, when aspersions are cast on the witness,
no
you're to be able.
aspersions cast.
Oh, there were.
Well,
sir.
By the way, I'm a dentist. Okay, so I read body language very, very well.
As I've watched your body language, as I've watched your facial expressions.
allow the witness to answer.
Everyone,
Why are you afraid
everyone
to let the
will
witness answer the
suspend.
question?
Everyone.
Did
Mr.
anything
Chairman,
about those,
order.
correct?
Regular order.
Nothing along
Mr.
the lines
Strzok,
that
you will
was not addressed.
suspend.
Well, that would come out.
Mr. Gomer, you will suspend.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Wow.
This has become a fishing expedition.
Is it the issue?
May I respond to your question, sir?
You may when we revisit the issue.
Oh, you
Point
just
of order,
asked a
Mr.
question.
You
May
let
I
the
respond now?
witness answer the question.
Mr. Chairman, the witness is permitted to answer the question briefly, as
The gentleman
Chairman,
from Louisiana is recognized.
as the chairman has repeatedly said today.
The gentleman from Louisiana is
Is the witness
recognized.
not going to be permitted to answer the question, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna object.
And that's what I'm doing. May I answer your question?
Please, let us bring the director of the FBI to answer those questions. The gentleman cannot answer.
Well,
He's asked and answered.
The American
He's
people
asked and
figured this
answered. He
out.
cannot answer.
The gentlewoman.
Let's have Director
Ray.
How many Americans have been indicted for conspiring with Russia to impact the 2016 election?
None, to my knowledge.
Yet.
From
May I
New York,
respond,
Mr.
Chairman,
Jeff.
to his question? May
I didn't hear a question.
This hearing has been a circus in a kangaroo court run in banana Republican fashion.
This hearing is a kangaroo court. It is not even meritorious of an investigation by Ace Ventura, pet detective.
Fantastic answer to a question nobody asked.
Yeah, Mr.
My
Gotti, you asked what
question
I
to
meant.
you is
Chairman,
the
the witness
wheel.
going to be permitted to answer the
You
question
said-
posed?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to?
Yes, you may.
Yes, Mr. Gotti. Sir, I think it's important when you look at those texts that you understand the context in which they were made and the things that were going on across America. In terms of the text that we will stop it, you need to understand that that was written late at night, off the cuff, and it was in response to a series of events that included then candidate Trump insulting the immigrant family of a fallen war hero. And my presumption, based on that horrible, disgusting behavior, that the American population would not elect somebody demonstrating that behavior to be president of the United States. It was in no way, unequivocally, any suggestion that me, the FBI, would take any action whatsoever to improperly impact the electoral process for any candidate. So I take great offense and I take great disagreement to your assertion of what that was or wasn't. As to the 100 million to 1, that was clearly a statement made in jest and using hyperbole. I, of course, recognize that millions of Americans were likely to vote for candidate Trump. I acknowledge that is absolutely their right. That is what makes our democracy such a vibrant process that it is. But to suggest somehow that we can parse down the words of shorthand textual conversations like there's some contract for a car is simply not consistent with my or most people's use of text messaging. I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, at no time in any of these texts did those personal beliefs ever enter into the realm of any action I took. Furthermore, this isn't just me sitting here telling you, you don't have to take my word for it. At every step, at every investigative decision, there are multiple layers of people above me, the assistant director, executive assistant director, deputy director, and director of the FBI, and multiple layers of people below me, section chiefs, supervisors, unit chiefs, case agents, and analysts, all of whom were involved in all of these decisions. They would not tolerate any improper behavior in me any more than I would tolerate it in them. That is who we are as the FBI. And the suggestion that I, in some dark chamber somewhere in the FBI, would somehow cast aside all of these procedures, all of these safeguards, and somehow be able to do this is astounding to me. It simply couldn't happen. And the proposition that that is going on, that it might occur anywhere in the FBI, deeply corrodes what the FBI is in American society, the effectiveness of their mission, and it is deeply destructive. And it is deeply destructive. And it is deeply destructive.
I must say this reminds me of what it must have been like to sit through the McCarthy hearings.